Say good morning to Peacock, who carries the program, also carries Pro Football Talk Live with the popular Mike Florio and Chris Sims every morning, Monday through Friday, preceding our show. And Mike, kind enough to join us. What did the Raiders do wrong, and did it warrant that kind of punishment?
Well, Dan, it all flows from the Trent Brown positive test that was followed by Trent Brown not wearing a contact tracing device, which is one of the key mechanisms for determining who was exposed to a player who eventually tests positive. That was part of it. And it was an accumulation of the various things we've seen the Raiders punished for, from John Gruden not wearing a mask. That was $350,000 in total fines. An unauthorized person in the locker room, that was another $50,000 fine. The event where several players were present in a confined space with too many people and no masks in sight, players were fined for that. So this is that system of progressive discipline the NFL uses. When the first effort doesn't take, they hit you a little harder the next time, and they'll keep hitting you harder and harder. So this time, $650,000 in fines, a sixth-round draft pick goes away. And if they don't straighten up, there will be more punishments, and they will be more severe. And the draft pick usually is what gets a team's attention. They don't like giving up those unscratched lottery tickets that can become anything. They don't want to have those stripped away from them.
I don't know if his comments matched the headline, and it was fair to Davante Adams. He was asked, basically, are you the best wide receiver in football? And he said yes. And then he explained why he thought he was. I have no problem with it. It's like we criticize the athlete when he doesn't say anything. Then when he does say it, we criticize him for saying something. Davante Adams, I don't know. Is he the best receiver? Here's the question we had earlier, Mike. You can have any receiver for the next 4 years. The cost is the same. Who would you take?
DK Metcalf, without question. DK Metcalf.
That's who won the poll. Yeah.
Yeah, without question. But I don't have a problem with Davante Adams saying he thinks he's the best receiver, because you need to believe that. In order to put that uniform on, in order to cross that thick white stripe and go onto the field and accept the various physical risks that you're taking every time you play, and to play at the highest possible level, you need to have confidence that borders on delusion and sometimes crosses over into delusion. I'm sure there are plenty of receivers, not as good as Davante Adams or DK Metcalf, that would say, yeah, I think I'm the best. You have to think you're the best. And I think one of the key ingredients, Dan, for the best receivers that we see now is not being a first-round draft pick. Because not being a first-round draft pick lights a fire under these guys. Davante Adams was a second-round pick. Michael Thomas, who is motivated unlike anyone else at the position, second-round draft pick, saw receivers that he looks at and says, I'm better than them, go before him. DK Metcalf said it yesterday. Yeah. It was a blessing in disguise that he wasn't a first-round pick, because it caused him to not take for granted the opportunity in Seattle, bust his ass, and be who he is now.
Should that game have been played last night?
Well, it depends on which team you ask.
Well, the Packers getting Aaron Jones back certainly helped, but
right.
It was a bad look for the NFL, in my opinion.
Here's the problem. When the NFL has an opportunity to move forward with a game, it is going to move forward with the game. Because if you bump this game to Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday in order to allow the 49ers to get back Trent Williams, who was removed from the game because he possibly was in sufficiently close contact with Kendrick Bourne to end up getting COVID-19, or Brandon Ayuk, first-round draft pick, receiver, who's done a great job for them. If you get those guys back, okay, fine. But the problem is, between now and Sunday or Monday or Tuesday, the 49ers could find out that there are other problems, and they could get to a point where you can't play that game. Then what do? Then that becomes the first game of the 18th week of the season that we believe is inevitable, but they want to resist it as long as they can. So we saw this for the first time, Dan, with the Buccaneers-Raiders game. They went forward, even though the Raiders had their starting offensive line unavailable until Saturday or Sunday morning. I think it was Saturday morning. They weren't prepared, and they got blown out. But the NFL got to play the game. The NFL got to cash the check from the networks. I think that's a big factor in all of this, even though, you don't want to make it all about money. They want to get these games in because they want their money. And they got their money last night. for having the Packers 49ers game on Fox. And if you had delayed that game, there's no guarantee that you're going to get that game in.
Is that how it works? That NBC will write a check weekly to the NFL?
No.
Okay,
no.
I was thinking, wow.
I'm making it as simple as possible and as linear as possible. And it's probably not that way, right? If games are ultimately lost at a time when there are broader negotiations happening with all the networks, I don't know that there's a rebate per se that would go back to the networks, but you avoid that conversation entirely if you're the NFL, if you deliver all 256 games, which they have a strong motivation to do.
I mentioned this yesterday. There are two things I know that are true in the NFL. I know that the Kansas City Chiefs are the best team right now, and I know that the Jets are the worst team in the NFL. I don't know much in between, Mike. Do you have any definitives where you say, absolutely, positively, I know this?
No, it's great. And anytime you try to do that, that's when you find out that you know nothing. And I will agree that the Chiefs are on paper the best team. But I don't know what would happen if you put the Chiefs on the same field as the Steelers right now.
Okay.
Because the Steelers have something. And Dan, I think it was born in last year's adversity and the way they dealt with not having Ben Roethlisberger and had to have a couple of...
What team did you grow up a fan of?
No. I grew up 60 miles from Pittsburgh, but I had to be different. I had to be a contrarian. So I didn't like the Steelers. I wish I had. It would have been a great 70s for me. 4 Super Bowl trophies. But I think that I've been around Pittsburgh my entire life. I know how this team works. And I think what they went through last year planted the seeds for this year because they have been back. And they fight and they scratch and they claw. I watched that Ravens-Steelers game back on Monday. I don't know how the hell the Steelers won. But you know what?
Yeah.
Throw out all the stats. Only one matters. Points scored, points allowed. And they keep finding a way to do it. So I feel like if they played the Chiefs right now, they'd find a way to outscore the Chiefs, even if the Chiefs would be going up and down the field all day long with Patrick Mahomes.
Maybe, yeah. I came into this season, I said the Steelers are the most fascinating team to me because I thought they had everything. They just needed Ben to be healthy, and Ben has stayed healthy, and here they are undefeated. Your good friend Aaron Rodgers, in the last 2.5 years, 75 touchdowns, 8 interceptions.
Hey, look, I have become a tremendous Aaron Rodgers fan. And I think part of it is hanging around Chris Sims every day because he regards Aaron Rodgers as the greatest quarterback of all time over his own father, Phil. And also, I think that he was done wrong by the Packers earlier this year, which makes him more sympathetic. I don't think they should have drafted a quarterback. They should have gotten him help at receiver. And I think that makes these last years of his in Green Bay, however many there will be, more compelling. And it makes me want to see him do well. And I think he has incredible physical gifts. And he's done more with limited talent around him than I think any quarterback has in recent memory. So, yeah, I think he's tremendous. And last night, it was great to see what they were able to do. Now, it's hard to tell against the 49ers B team, but I like what the Packers have. And I just wish he had more help around him because he'd have a better chance to add to his legacy.
Yeah, and we look at these quarterbacks. You know, Drew Brees is probably going to end up with 1 Super Bowl. Favre had 1 Super Bowl. Rodgers may end up with just 1 Super Bowl. What does that second Super Bowl mean, do you think, the perception-wise of a quarterback?
Well, I don't know. Maybe we want to ask Jim Plunkett that because he's got 2 and he's never mentioned as a potential Hall of Famer, and he's got 2 Super Bowl wins that he earned as the quarterback of the Raiders. But I think it does start to separate you from the pack of greats. You know, there's this echelon of quarterbacks, and Tom Brady has become, I think once he got to 5, the guy that we would admit is the greatest of all time at the position. Once he gets to 6, I think the debate ends. But then you start filling in under that. And Super Bowls are part of it. Statistical achievement, longevity is part of it. There are different ways that you can look at it. Brady was the first one to unite championships, longevity, and statistical achievement. But yeah, they all want as many as they can. Ben Roethlisberger said before the season, Dan, he wants to win Super Bowls. He doesn't want just 1 more. He wants 2 more or more than 2 more. I mean, that's the way these guys are wired. It's the Devontae Adams thing. They all want to be the best every time. They want to win every game. They want to win every championship. And it's got to torment them if they only have 1 when their otherwise great career ends.
The Dolphins situation with Tua, Adam Schefter reported that this is a 10-game trial for him because they have all these draft picks, including the Texans, and that they might be in the market for a quarterback, which, all right, it surprised me, but it was Schefter reporting it. Brian Flores, the Dolphins coach, comes out and says, we're not doing this. Not that he would say, yes, we are doing this. But what do you make of this situation with Tua Tagovailoa? Is he auditioning to keep this job next year?
And Dan, look, I don't really think we need a report from anyone to lead us to the commonsensical conclusion that when you are holding the Houston Texans first-round draft pick, and they currently are in the top 5, in a field that's going to have Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, you need to know what you have. You need to know what Tua is. And look, here's the reality. Tua Tagovailoa was an ownership pick by the Dolphins this year. He wasn't a coaching staff GM, who's the best guy, what's our best option. The owner wants a franchise quarterback. The Bengals said no thank you when the Dolphins tried to trade up. I still don't know what the Dolphins offered, but the Bengals said no. So Stephen Ross wants his franchise quarterback. They picked Tua over Justin Herbert. May have been a mistake based upon what we've seen from Herbert so far. The next 10 games will tell us. But they have to know what Tua has. They have to see what Tua can do, because maybe there's going to be a Josh Rosen, Kyler Murray situation for the Dolphins next year. And you only know whether or not to pursue that potential franchise quarterback by looking at what you have in the guy that you think could be your franchise quarterback. And Dan, look, there's 3 types of teams in the NFL. Teams that have franchise quarterbacks, teams desperately looking for franchise quarterbacks, and teams that have a guy that they're not quite sure yet whether he is a franchise quarterback. Dolphins are in category number 3. They need to know whether they're in category 1 or category 2 before they're on the clock with the Texans pick when April rolls around. I think it's a no-brainer that this is what they're doing, because you want the guy that's going to be your guy for the next 15 or 20 years.
Andrew Siciliano tweeting, Mike McCarthy still won't name a starting quarterback for week 9 for the Cowboys. If you ran the Cowboys right now, what would you do?
Well, I would have signed Colin Kaepernick a long time ago to be the backup to Dak Prescott, frankly, instead of Andy Dalton. So if Kaepernick were healthy, he'd be playing right now because Prescott's not available. But based on what I currently have, you just have to hope for the best, because it's not like you could sign a guy and bring him in right now because of the COVID-19 protocols. It's not like you could have an emergency option today and bring a guy in. You're stuck with Garrett Gilbert or Cooper Rush. You've decided Ben DiNucci's not the answer, and you just hope for the best. And, Jerry Jones, I heard your last segment talking about what the Cowboys are doing. Jerry Jones has a couple of word salad radio interviews every week on 105.3 The Fan in Dallas. And it's a fascinating exercise in let's figure out what Jerry is actually saying. And a lot of times you can't. But he talked about this concept of possibly tanking, and he danced around it. I mean, look, tanking never happens from the perspective of the player or the coach, although sometimes the coach is in on it if he's got job security. Tanking happens when you decide to see what your third string quarterback can do, what your backup defensive back can do, what your backup offensive lineman can do. And then it just kind of takes its course. And if you're the Cowboys right now, and it's done, look, it's just done. If you're watching the Cowboys, it's done. Yeah, they could still win the division. Okay, fine. It's done for the Cowboys this year. Once you know it's done, you win by losing. You gain in the draft order by plummeting in the standings. And the NFL never talks about that because they don't want to legitimize it. But I think Jerry Jones is smart enough to know he's got one of these weird years where the team's going belly up. The last time they had a year like this, they got Ezekiel Elliott. They may get somebody great this year. And wouldn't that be something if the Cowboys are in position to decide, do we take Trevor Lawrence? Do we take Justin Fields? Or do we pay Dak Prescott $37 million for one more year in 2021?
If I said you could have Dak or Justin Fields?
I'd take Dak because we don't know what Justin Fields is going to be. We just don't know.
I don't want to spend $37 million.
Well, that's a different issue. You didn't tell me what I'm going to pay Dak.
No, well, you
just
have
told me
to
which
pay
guy
him.
do I want. Right. Do I want the Cowboys situation right now, given the way they've mismanaged it for the last 2 years and not paid Dak the moment that the window opened on a second contract? I don't want that situation, because here's the thing. $37 million is just the starting point. I can't tag him in 2022 because he gets a 44% raise over 37 million. That's 54 million in 2022. So I can't do that. I'm taking Justin Fields under that scenario. But you always take the proven guy over the unproven guy if you have the cap space and the cash to pay the proven guy.
Always great to talk to you. We appreciate your time. Have a great weekend, Mike.
All right, Dan, you too, pal.
That's Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk, ProFootballTalk.com, Pro Football Talk Live with Chris Sims, preceding this show on Peacock.